right where I grew up. It's literally my home at the center of this. It's so strange. My mom's house is gone, just washed away. Silo, North Carolina, the river, it's right on that river. That river rose up, trapped people on the other side. But you're not able to cross that river when it's that high. And you can't wait. Clock is ticking, like we just said. The only way is over. Why is Tim Kennedy being told he can't take that helicopter when there is a landing zone? Now they're being told that we need predetermined flight. We need the logistics. These overly detailed. You can always bog something down with bureaucracy to kill it.
The volunteer side, I mean, if you're not like search and rescue, a helicopter pilot with a helicopter, and even that, it's getting really weird with federal agencies not allowing some people to do things. I don't understand it. It's make sure you register to vote.
From Elon, he says SpaceX engineers are trying to deliver Starlink terminals and supplies to devastated areas in North Carolina right now, and FEMA is both failing to help and won't let others help. This is unconscionable. They just took this video a few hours ago where you can see the level of devastation. Roads, houses, electricity, water supply, and ground internet connections completely destroyed. FEMA wouldn't let them land to deliver critical supplies. When I bring this up, people claim that this is misinformation. Okay, Mr. Buttigieg, well, he's claiming, no,
we'll stop it there, people. For those of you who don't know, this is Warren Smith. For those of you who don't recall, the internet memory is mildly short. He was the former teacher, I think they have since severed ties with him, who went viral for teaching a kid how to think critically about, let me just move this here, about whether or not J.K. Rowling is transphobic. He went viral for that. He's from North Carolina. His family's in North Carolina. Family lost their home, just gone. And I don't know what type of insurance people up in the mountains had or have in terms of, whether or not it's going to be adequate coverage. But these people were mountain life, mountain insurance, which I don't know that it covers this type of flooding, and I'm not sure that it does. And he's giving his firsthand experience now, at least through his parents. Tim Kennedy, for those of you who don't follow him, I think everybody knows who Tim Kennedy is. He's amazing, been on Rogan a bunch of times. What he's doing now is what he was made for. And he's reporting from on the ground what we are all hearing. And then we're being told it's not happening. While we're seeing it happening, being told that it's happening, I am hearing from people on the ground who don't necessarily want to come public just yet, that a lot of this stuff that we're hearing is in fact true, that FEMA is in fact appropriating supplies that were donated, that FEMA is in fact excluding people from rescue missions if they're not, as Warren Smith explained, certified, whatever. So we're hearing this while being told that it's not happening. And yet we're hearing now also that people are quite literally being left to die. We're hearing that FEMA et al. Are in there bulldozing. We don't know if it's to cover up. I don't think you can cover up deaths in this day and age, or whether or not it's to make for safer roads so that people can access these places. But we're being told that FEMA is doing everything it possibly can and is not restricting legitimate help from arriving. Pete Buttigieg came out yesterday and said, no, FEMA's not blocking legitimate rescue efforts. And I don't know if legitimate rescue efforts means anybody who's not affiliated with FEMA being blocked. And just so that nobody accuses me of taking things out of context or misrepresenting, this is literally what they're telling us right now. While we're hearing stories of absolute devastation, people who are running out of food have been, dire straits is not the word for it. But you got Pete Buttigieg coming up there and saying, no, that's legitimate rescue efforts are not being hindered. And then the question is, what on earth is meant by legitimate? We're going to talk about it again when Barnes gets in here tonight. Another, 150 million in aid to Lebanon after the 5, 8, 15, who the hell knows how many billions of dollars in aid to Israel, in addition to the 5 billion in aid to Gaza to help with the victims of this conflict. It's an amazing thing. It's that meme that has the bombs going off on one side and it says my tax dollars, and then you got the intercepting bombs on the other side saying somehow also my tax dollars. You have Kamala Harris, or at least it's Mayorkas, Alejandro Mayorkas, who has facilitated the largest unlawful invasion of a nation, I don't know, since, I don't know what would be an equivalent historically, coming out now and saying FEMA doesn't have enough money to get through the end of the hurricane season. We got another hurricane coming to Florida. We're in the middle, not in the middle, but we're off the East Coast inland enough, and we're certainly far from the West Coast. It's like, man, but people are getting hammered left, right, and center. They're going to go and try to politicize this in terms of climate crisis and say this is why you need climate change, because if you had paid more in taxes last year, the hurricanes wouldn't have been this bad this year. But you see your government, and it's not squandering like, it's not like, they're not on tight budgets. They're not squandering like hundreds of millions of dollars, whereas they're spending billions at home. It's almost the exact opposite. They're squandering hundreds of billions of dollars abroad and then telling you at home, here's your $750 and we're going to help you. That's not all. Don't worry. That's not all of it. But that's just to help you through the night. As if money does any good when you have no place to spend it, no place to receive it, and no place to deposit it, and you have no place. And so we're hearing these horror stories, absolute horror stories from the ground while being told that they're not happening. There's a couple of things that I wanted to bring up to highlight for everybody here. What are we left to do? We plebs. I was going to, I'm making the joke. I've got an SUV with 30 some odd inches of clearance. I can drive through water. I can drive over trees. But like I'm told, you don't go up to North Carolina unless you're carrying a firearm and prepared to use it for self-defense, because that's how bad it is. Not from like the locals, just there's always pirates, mean-spirited, opportunistic predators who will exploit any given situation for their own good. So I ain't doing that. What can I do from down here? Raise awareness. Trump put up a GoFundMe. Nobody should ever use GoFundMe, and I can't bring myself to do it. So Jacob Wells, Give, Send, Go, told me this is the charity to use. And so I'll remind to take the biggest night of the week. Link to Give, Send, Go if you want to help, raise the funds that the government doesn't have because they've pissed them away financing foreign proxy wars. They've pissed billions and billions. They've lost more money in pissing away hundreds of billions than would have been required to rebuild all of Lahaina, all of East Palestine, and clean it up, and now add to the list North Carolina. And then you're told, sorry, no money for you. But the same freaking day, Kamala Harris comes out and says, we're sending $150 million more to deal with the devastation in Lebanon that was caused with the arms that were also procured with the finances of American taxpaying citizens. Here, link to Give, Send, Go. Putting that in all of the chats here, link. I think everyone in our Rumbles community, vivabarneslaw.locals.com knows it's there. All right. Let's just see if it's had any, because I'm obsessive compulsive. 73,946. We'll refresh that in a second to see. All right. But classic stuff. Like it's scripted as though the manner in which this story is being told is intended to enrage and demoralize an entire nation. Here. Oh, crab apples. Remember, Kamala Harris tries to distance herself from the Biden administration, all of the failures, because she's just VP. There's nothing she can do about any of this. And then she gets out there. I mean, did you notice like Joe Biden is absent and Kamala Harris is the de facto president of these United States of America, telling you that she can't do anything. Her arms are tied, and everything that's gone to hell over the last 3.5 years, she couldn't do anything about the border because it wasn't her administration. And yet now she's just taking over the reins and taking credit for the things that go her way. Biden gave a press conference. Was it Friday? I think it was Friday, October 4. Yeah, it was Friday, where I believe astutely observed that Biden, probably still salty, is illustrating the fact that no. It's the Biden-Harris administration, not the Biden administration. I pulled this clip up. It went quasi-viral. Fox News wrote an article on it afterwards. And somehow I'm on a blacklist with Fox News. I don't think there's any question about that, probably because of my affiliation with the notorious Robert Barnes. But listen to this.
There have obviously been a number of crises that the country has been facing over the past several days with the hurricane, with the port strike, with the situation in the Middle East. Can you talk about how your vice president, who is running for the presidency, has worked on these crises and what role she has played over the past several days?
Well, I'm in constant contact with her. She's aware we're singing from the same song sheet. She helped pass all the laws that are being employed now. She was a major player in everything we've done, including passage of legislation which we were told we could never pass. And so she's been, and her staff is interlocked with mine in terms of all the things we're doing.
Want to refresh everybody's memory about that just before we head on into the more substantive stuff of the evening. But hold on. Let me bring this one up also. Then we're going to get into the Jewish space lasers, people. Are we 8 minutes in yet? Yeah, we're 8 minutes in, so I can start swearing and I can talk about Jewish space lasers. I'm joking. I couldn't care less about that. Whatever rule exists on. Apparently, if you swear within 5 minutes of a YouTube video, they like demonetize it or deprioritize it. It's a load of bullshit as far as I'm concerned. Bada bing, bada boom. Here, listen to this.
Go ahead, Josh.
Thanks again for doing this, Mr. President. 2 questions.
Joe Biden gave a press conference, and they're like kissing his ass and thanking him for doing. Thank you for the amount of reporters who said, "Thank you, Joe Biden, for doing this." You got to thank the President of the United States of America for giving a press conference during one of the most disastrous, cataclysmic weeks in American history. Oh my goodness! And thank you for gracing us with this. The little plebs with the little specks of some public speaking thing. Screw that one up. But here, listen to this.
The first, Florida Senator Marco Rubio described today's jobs report as having fake numbers. What do you make of that? How worried are you,
Mr. Burns,
that many Americans are hearing that the jobs numbers aren't real?
Look. Be very careful here.
Yeah, be very careful, Joe. Whatever the hell that
means.
Notice
anything the MAGA Republicans don't like, they call fake.
Well, especially when it's fake.
The job numbers are what the job numbers are.
The job numbers are what the job numbers are. And don't forget that the job numbers are what the job numbers are. And the job numbers are what the job numbers are. Therefore, the job numbers are what the job numbers are. Next question.
They're real.
They're
sincere.
They're sincere.
They're what we are. And by the way,
what the hell does sincere mean? When it comes to reporting statistics, I don't care if you're sincere or insincere, so long as they're accurate. But when you start telling me that they're sincere, that tells me that you're lying. Like you did back, when was it? August? No, it was earlier than that. Receipts incoming.
Look at how the EU talks about us, how they like to have an economy like ours. Just talk about the rest of the world looks at us and what we're doing. So I don't want to get going.
I don't want to get going. This is like what pathological narcissists do, is they try to let you think there's more to it that makes them right while never saying it because they're not. Oh, remember this part? When was this from? U.S. added 818,000 fewer jobs than reported earlier. The Labor Department issued revised figures for the 12 months through March that point to greater economic fragility.
Numbers are what the job numbers are. They're real. They're sincere. They're what we are. And by the way, just look at how the EU talks about us, how they like to have an economy like ours.
No, it's sincere. They lie. All they do is lie, and they expect you to swallow their lies. And when you call them out on their lies, then they say, "Oh, all those MAGA folks, they do is they just call everything fake." Like what they're doing to Marjorie Taylor Greene, to bring it a little bit back to what's going on in North Carolina. Talking about it felt very Canadian there. How Marjorie Taylor Greene brought up how government controls the weather, or has been. I shouldn't say controls it as though it's an ongoing thing, but has engaged in weather control tactics, weather control strategies, weather control research, weather control patterns. They've actually weaponized weather control. Operation crap. The one during the Vietnam War when they exacerbated the monsoon season to cause enhanced flooding in Vietnam. Okay. Forget the patents. If you'd seen the episode of The Unusual Suspects, which aired on Friday, you would have seen the thorough discussion of this. They've done it. They've researched it. They've patented it. It's a thing. They admitted it. That guy, I forget what his name is, admitted it at the in 2015 at a conference. But then when Marjorie Taylor Greene comes out and talks about it, then they mock her and they drop the A card, the anti-Semitic card. Listen to this. She said it happens. Whether or not they did it in North Carolina, I personally don't believe it. But to go out and say that it's a conspiracy theory, well, I guess it might be a theory. To go out and say that it's outlandish, scientifically inaccurate, and totally false is itself scientifically inaccurate and totally false. But Marjorie Taylor Greene has been on a tear over the weekend defending her reputation. Why? I'm actually reluctant to show this clip because I know those CBS bastards are going to copyright claim this on YouTube, and I'll have to contest it like I always do and say it's quintessential fair use, you copyright troll bastards. I'll say it in advance. Quintessential fair use, CBS copyright troll bastards. Listen to this.
You know, they were talking about climate change yesterday, and now we're learning that scientists and researchers are looking at how to change the weather on purpose. That's right. Lasers now could one day manipulate rain and lightning. CBS This Morning contributor Michio Kaku is a physics professor at City College of New York. Professor, nice to see you. Extraordinary seeing Al Gore and Bill Clinton there together with Charlie, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
They did not get into this discussion, though. But it is fascinating. I mean, lasers, really? To change the weather?
Oh, lasers? Really? To change the weather? I mean, this is 9 years ago. It's not 59 years ago. And this journalist feigning ignorance at what anybody with half a brain already knew. How do they do it? Actually, we should play this out because it's kind of impressive what the apparently had been tested successfully in lab was demonstrating a decade ago. Listen to this.
That's right. Well, as Mark Twain once famously said, everyone complains about the weather, but no one ever does anything about it. Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts. This is potentially a game changer.
But this is experimental.
It's experimental. However, in the laboratory so far, it works. When you have water vapor and you have dust particles or ice crystals, you can precipitate rain. It condenses around the seeds. These seeds can also be created by laser beams. By firing trillion-watt lasers, you rip apart the electrons, creating what are called ions, and these ions act like seeds, like dust particles, bringing down rain and even lightning.
All right, so they're only talking about rain and lightning. Hold on one second. Directing hurricanes using lasers. Well, this is going back in the day. The man who controls the weathers. There was a patent or research being done on controlling the direction of hurricanes. And again, by the way, I'm not saying that I believe it happened here at all. You know, everybody who wants to criticize the conspiracy theory that this was government engineered or government directed to go for the lithium mine, you know, so the government can come in and claim the destroyed land for the purposes of secure whatever. Everybody who wants to make everybody who looks foolish who's espousing that says, look, anywhere this hurricane, this one, the one that's coming this coming week in Florida, is going straight for Mar-a-Lago. And so there's a famous troll account on Twitter, Liam Neeson. And if you don't know that it's a troll account, people, it's a troll account making the joke, look, we've engineered this one to go. Now we're going for Mar-a-Lago because that looks like the trajectory of the hurricane as it will cross the Wang, the peninsula. But the bottom line, it's a thing. And anybody who says it's not a thing, they tell you that it's not a thing when they've been researching it, patenting it, and as we can now see from a decade earlier, celebrating the technology. What blows my mind is that they want to talk about cloud seeding, you know, so you can reflect the sunlight at the stratospheric level, I guess. And so the cloud seeding technology, which they've been doing, and you know, whatever, the idea is it's going to reflect the sunlight and cool the Earth's temperature. That's fine. It's like anybody who hasn't seen the movie Donnie Darko, go watch it. But there's the awesome scene where they're doing the high school project and the girl and Donnie, I forget her name, they come up with this idea of like constantly not bombarding you, but even when you're sleeping or when your eyes are closed, you know, giving you visuals, giving you videos to continue to train your brain, to learn, etc. And the teacher, who's Noah Wiley, it's a great scene, says, well, what if your brain needs peace, needs quiet, needs no stimulation in order to develop properly? Like, they think about deflecting the sunlight, but I mean, I'm asking questions out loud. Might that not result in more stuff being trapped in the atmosphere from the ground if you have bouncing things out? Presumably it's going to bounce things down as well. So whatever. When you solve one problem and you think you've solved one problem, you might have created another 10. That's what the government is for. But the bottom line, Marjorie Taylor Greene is not wrong. And anybody saying that she's outright wrong, stupid, lying, conspiracy theorist is an idiot. And the idiot of the evening, Sarah Silverman. Sarah said we got to go down the chain here. Marjorie Taylor Greene says, yes, they can control the weather. It's ridiculous for anyone to lie and say it can't be done. She got community noted because, unfortunately, Elon, for all of the good stuff on Twitter, community notes is a lefty weapon on the platform. Weather manipulation is possible at small scale, for example, cloud seeding. However, weather patterns is general and naturally occurring and cannot be controlled. Hurricanes and other large storms cannot be created artificially with modern technology. Notice nobody really said anything about created artificially, but potentially guided or manipulated once they come into existence. It's an amazing thing what the fact check says and what it doesn't say, but set that aside because I don't know or believe or have any reason to believe that occurred this time around. People are saying because the hurricane got stronger as it hit land and then sat there for an extended period of time. That's not an indication. That's an indication of an act of God as far as I'm concerned, not an act of government, but whatever. The fact check is still wrong. The fact check is opinion. The fact check is argument or community notes. Sorry, it's an argument and not a fact check. Sarah Silverman says, hi, you're an anti-Semitic pig. Do I get myself in trouble tonight? For those of you who don't know, Sarah Silverman is Jewish. So what some people do, they use the accusation of racism, misogyny, bigotry, anti-Semitism as a shield and a sword. But I had to reply to Sarah Silverman. I don't have to reply here, but it doesn't matter. It's like, I didn't see anybody mention Jew. Hey, you're an anti-Semitic pig. I'm sorry. Is the first thing you think about when someone accuses the government of controlling the weather the Jews? Because if that's the case, Sarah Silverman, you might be the anti-Semite. You know, the blackface wearing, arguably racist by their own standards woman is now accusing Marjorie Taylor Greene of being an anti-Semite, even though nobody uttered the word Jewish anywhere in that tweet, anywhere in there. And then people say, oh, no, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's the one who talked about the Jewish space lasers. She's obviously an anti-Semite. She talked about Jewish space lasers, to which I had to say to anybody who's listening, Marjorie Taylor Greene never said Jewish space lasers ever. And the reason why I say this with a little bit of shock and astonishment is because I thought she did. This was a long time ago. No, I'm going to say like 2 years ago. The first time I went to fact check this, I was like, oh, I need to see the actual post when Marjorie Taylor Greene allegedly said Jewish space lasers. Because if she said Jewish space lasers, I mean, that sounds crazy. That does sound crazy even to me. I mean, Chinese space lasers, we're referring to like a country that develops technology. But Jewish space lasers, I would be, I'd be questioning someone's sanity there. She never said Jewish space lasers ever. And somebody who is, I can't see it because they blocked me. The people block me and then reply on my threads, on my tweets, making accusations against me. And I said, this dumbass replies to a tweet of mine and has me blocked. Courage. If I weren't blocked to this dumbass, I would tell him I can't forget about the whole Jewish space lasers thing because Marjorie Taylor Greene never actually said Jewish space lasers. Just another idiot creating false memories from fake news that he reads that makes up quotes that never actually existed. And it's worth reading her original post on this. As there are now over 70 people confirmed and 1,000 missing from the fires in California, they're a horrific tragedy I'm playing for all involved. I'm posting this speculation because there are too many coincidences to ignore and just putting it out here for some research I've done stemming from my curiosity over PG&E stocks, which tanked all week, then rallied Thursday after California officials announced they would not let PG&E fail. I find it very interesting that Roger Kimmel on the board of directors of PG&E is also vice chairman of Rothschild Inc., international investment banking firm. I also find it interesting that long history of financial contributions that PG&E has made to Jerry Brown, who I don't think is Jewish, by the way, because we're going to get to this afterwards, over the years and spent millions in lobbying. What a coincidence. It must be that Governor Brown signed a bill in September 2018 protecting PG&E and allowing PG&E to pass off its cost of fire responsibility to its customers in rate hikes and through bonds. It might also just be a coincidence that the fires are burning in the same projected areas that $77 billion in high-speed rail project is to be built, which also happens to be Government Brown's pet project. And what are the odds that Feinstein's husband, Richard Bloom, is the contractor to the rail project? Geez, with all that much money, we could build 3 U.S. southern border walls. Then, oddly, there are these people who have said they saw what looked like lasers and blue beams of light causing fires, and pictures and videos. I don't know anything about that, but I do find it really curious. PG&E's partnership with Solarin on space solar generators starting in 2009. They announced the launch into space in March 2018, and maybe even put them up before that. Space solar generators collect the sun's energy and then beam it back to Earth to a transmitter to convert it to electricity. The idea is clean energy to replace coal and oil. If they're beaming the sun's energy back to the Earth, I'm sure they wouldn't ever miss a transmitter receiving station, right? I mean, mistakes are never made when anything new is invented. What would that look like anyway? A laser beam or light coming down to Earth, I guess. Could that cause a fire? I don't know. I hope not. That wouldn't look so good for PG&E, Solar and Jerry Brown. Okay, let's just skip through this here a little bit. It's getting a little long. I will also say that whoever was able to buy PG&E stock at the bottom before the announcement was made, then when stocks rallied, sure did well on their investment. I wonder how you get privy to that kind of info. You must have to know somebody, right? Seems like there's a lot of connected people in this crowd. And these space solar generators, I really hope that they're very good at beaming the sun's energy down to Earth. But what do I know? I just read a lot. Anybody notice like one word? In fact, two, in fact, three. The entire Jewish space lasers is absent from that post. What's amazing about that post is it actually mentions people who I'm fairly certain are not Jewish, or at least some. And if someone looks at that post and says, my goodness, there's a lot of people in here who happen to be Jewish, they might be the anti-Semites for saying you can't even talk about people who are connected politically if they happen to be Jewish without being accused of being an anti-Semite. Wild. It's wild. And when I found out that Marjorie Taylor Greene never even said the words Jewish space lasers, my goodness, I didn't know who I could believe anymore. While Barnes is in the backdrop coming in here, let's just get to some of these tip chats. Barnes, how you doing?
Hey.
Sir, I'll read a few of them. We got a few here. We got sent you an email, Viva, with some personal experiences from the area. Thank you. That's Blue CW Soldier. I've been getting a lot of messages. Some people don't want to talk publicly because you don't want to piss off the feds. Then we got Sammy says, North Carolina police just announced that they will be arresting FEMA agents if they interfere with charity citizen deployment. Very nice. That's from Sammy. We got Stingway. How do I do this here? We don't have a sponsor for the today's show, but I'm going to use Rumble Advertiser Center Rumble Advertisement Center to show everybody how good it is. We got a channel put up a vid on the sheriff was confiscating supplies being flown in, claimed the woman leading the effort was stealing, and it would be taken to be accounted for. Oh, the stuff that I'm hearing here. Okay, we'll stop. We'll get to more after this. My family lives in Tampa, St. Pete area. Hopefully the wind shear for my north slows it down and decategorizes it to a 1. Yeah, they said it's at a 2, maybe going to a 3. Let me see here. That's from Sadaka. And then we got Denise and 2 in our vivabarneslaw.locals.com community. I heard that $750 is a loan that the recipients have 1 year to pay it back, or they forfeit their property. Don't donate to FEMA and don't take the $750. That's what a lot of people didn't realize about the $2,000 a month during the COVID crisis in Canada, at least. $2,000 a month. You're going to get taxed on that, and you're going to have to pay taxes on that at the end of the day. And we'll stop on this one before we get into the show tonight. Beta or Beata or Beta, that's Beta 1973 is now a member of our Viva Barnes Law.locals.com community. Robert, sir, how goes the battle?
Good.
The book behind you, is that Liberace's autobiography?
No, not Liberace. It'd be Simon Bolivar, a big biography on the legendary Latin American revolutionary that most political figures of a similar spirit, left or right, call their revolution a Bolivarian revolution in honor. And he's sort of the George Washington of Latin America.
Not to be childish, but I will because I am. Sorry, what's his first name?
Simon or Simon.
Okay, sorry, I heard that. Okay, never mind. That makes more sense. But my kid came back from the grocery store with my wife, and they had 1 potato. I was like, what the hell did you get 1? Oh, and then I turned it around, and then I saw exactly why they got that 1 potato. I'll bring it in a bit. Robert, what do we have on for the menu for tonight?
We've got FEMA. Its legal power and authority, what it can and is not authorized to do. The sentencing of election whistleblower Tina Peters in Colorado. Amos Miller will be in Pittsburgh defending him on Tuesday morning as the state tries to shut him down. He's the Amish farmer. What's happening with COVID injured cases against various immunity claims, emergency immunity claims, kind of like FEMA's power. Big Pharma sued for a major conspiracy theory involving insulin pricing by the state of Texas. We've got the courts ordering the seizure of internet domains in ex parte secret proceedings. And we've got the EU suing Hungary. Those cases might have a relationship that people wouldn't necessarily guess off the top. The Wizard of Oz made an appearance in court this week. Democrats confess their lawfare plans in various podcasts and their complicity and culpability in prior lawfare involving the Trump administration. The meme ban, with a lot of free speech cases, the meme ban struck down. Also, the effort of the state of California to force censorship on X and other social media also struck down, thanks to Elon Musk's suit. And correcting the mistaken belief that Tim Walz and a range of Democrats have, that if you yell fire in a crowded theater, that speech is not protected, and thus any dangerous speech can be not protected. I'll give a little bit of the history of how that doctrine came about and then how it got overturned. The Alex Jones being threatened with a personal receiver out of the Travis County courthouse as well. So that's a dozen or so cases for this week.
Okay, Robert, the potato has entered the chat. So check this out. Oh, it looks like a normal potato. Oh, you can't see this potato and not buy that potato. So proud of my kid. And I'm gonna stick it on like a Barbie doll, because that is a butt cheek right there. Okay, we'll obviously have to start with FEMA. We're going to go from a lighthearted potato butt joke to like a catastrophic disaster of I won't say government made in the hurricane sense, but certainly government exacerbated in the dereliction of duty sense. So the hurricane came and caused a massive catastrophic damage. As we saw from Warren Smith, houses swept up and disappeared. Whether or not people have any or adequate insurance, it's a disaster. Robert, the question some people are asking is, apparently the Republicans voted against additional financing to FEMA this year. And so now they've got nothing to complain about because FEMA says they're out of money after having squandered nearly $1 billion on illegal immigrants, which is another government man-made federal emergency of their own doing. I mean, of all the issues, take us through this. First of all, I guess there's FEMA, there's the DHS, there's who's in charge of this. I mean, do you want to flesh out like how negligent the government is and how disgraceful it is at the time where their negligence is literally killing people? They're off giving hundreds of millions and billions to foreign countries and foreign proxy wars.
Yeah, FEMA is the subject of many conspiracy theories because of their odd history. So it's not always been known as the Federal Emergency Management Agency. It's had a bunch of different names, and it's been located in a bunch of different agencies within different cabinet secretaries over the years. It didn't get the name of FEMA itself until 1979 by President Carter. And even then, it went through multiple transformations. It cites as its legal authority 3 or 4 main statutes, but it cites another 60 or 70 as giving it some authority because it's all related to emergency powers. Now, the real history of FEMA and the reason why they've been the subject of so many conspiracy theories, you can watch the X-Files movies, for example. In the X-Files show, the bad actors are always organizing through FEMA, disguising alien activities through FEMA and so forth. But the reason for a lot of that is, FEMA's predecessor existence and for a large part of its existence, its biggest part of its budget was classified. It's to give people an idea, the Dr. Strangelove reference to the underground bunker where everybody's going to live, where one general's character is okay with when he finds out it's going to be 5 women for every man, and that they'll need to be attractive and so forth. The actual people doing that was FEMA in its predecessor form. I think it was called Mount Weather in the Blue Ridge Mountains. They were the ones managing a nuclear apocalyptic fallout. and to give, and a lot of your deep state types had deep FEMA ties as well. I mean, if you dig into what some of their evacuation plans were, they would have things that really smacked of eugenics. Like they would say, we think we inspired that you could win a nuclear war. Many generals in the 50s and 60s believed this insanity. And they're like, we think we can get 85% of the population safe. And you dig in, and they really mean 85% of the desirable population. And what they meant by that is, well, we probably wouldn't be able to help out the handicapped, the sick, the injured, the people that are really kind of too old, that are don't have any friends or family around. I mean, it exposed a lot of the true nature of the government's thinking, who it prioritized and saving in the case of an emergency. So that's where the stories about FEMA camps come from, is that they had designed these bunker facilities to be evacuated facilities all around the country. And therefore, you got the theories of, or concerns about, are they setting these up for camps for dissidents, for example? And it's all related to emergency power. So that's part of the history, is that FEMA really wasn't actually emergency oriented, like natural disaster oriented, in a meaningful way until the Cold War ended. So that's it, and then it's been sort of a hodgepodge of political favors. The people that get it are not put in those positions because they're actually very competent or capable.
I'm Googling as you're talking whether or not the $750 amount is a loan that has to be repaid. I see something about a grant, FEMA grants not having to be repaid, and I don't know if that $750 is a grant or another form of payment.
That's what FEMA's main authority is. In its current form, you have the Stafford Act. For a while, they put it in under Homeland Security, the Department of Fatherland, Paternity, the Securitas, very Nazi kind of name that the W regime gave to the Patriot Act reforms. After that, so that increased suspicions and skepticism of exactly what FEMA was up to. And then after the disaster of Katrina, they transitioned it out of the Department of Homeland Security, and they've sort of moved it around and have purportedly tried to make it more centered around actual domestic emergencies. But the Biden administration had a completely different path. The Biden administration chose to use it primarily as a immigration tool. That they, contrary to what, like, for example, there was some media people lying this morning to Senator Cotton and other people saying, there were no FEMA funds used to help any of the illegals or any of the migrants. And you can just go to FEMA's own website, and it describes how it's giving all this money to Cubans or Haitians or people that are refugees or people that are seeking asylum or people that have been given special status by the Biden administration to be here for 1 year. Yes, indeed, that's where all the money went. The money went to something that FEMA shouldn't even be involved in. How does migrant relocation have anything to do with an emergency? It shows you how political this agency has long been. But the stories about them saying that they control who can give aid, they control how that aid is given, they can exclude people from certain airspace, they can exclude people from they have no such legal power. You won't find that power anywhere in any of the statutes. The statute's purpose says over and over again, they are solely to assist and supplement private efforts and local efforts. They are given no authority at all to exclude local or state or private efforts at relief or remedy. They're only even supposed to be called in by an emergency declaration when there's inadequate local and state and private resources available. But they are not given any special authority of declaring a martial law effectively, of having exclusive jurisdiction over responding to any kind of crisis. Their primary role is to give money, and their second, which is grants, and their second role is to help coordinate, help supplement, help complement existing local, state, and private rescuing efforts. So this talk about them, that rumors circulating that they're trying to exclude aid from, they have no such legal authority. That, in fact, their obligation is to protect civil rights and civil liberties, and to not be discriminatory themselves in how they behave and handle things. So if you're hearing any of that, it's like local sheriffs made clear if anybody was doing that, they would arrest those people because FEMA people have no such authority to do it. The other main thing that FEMA does, aside from create funds for people, is and help coordinate federal resources. For example, that you can enlist private contractors, you can enlist local government workers, you can enlist people from other federal agencies to help coordinate. That's all they're there to do, is to supplement and assist and coordinate and provide grants. They have no other purpose or role. And to the degree they're claiming any such purpose or role, that far exceeds their legal and constitutional authority.
Let me bring something up here because I want to fact check in real time as well, where the rumors are funding for FEMA disaster response was diverted to support international efforts or border related issues. Like the fact, okay, this is the fact. This is false. No money is being diverted from disaster response needs. FEMA's disaster response efforts and individual assistance is funded through the Disaster Relief Fund, which is a dedicated fund for disaster efforts. I don't know if that's true or not, but I presume that's true. Disaster Relief Fund money has not been diverted to other non-disaster related efforts. Robert, why do I feel like I'm reading a freaking shell game being played by Bernie Madoff?
Because they start off with a straw man argument. No one's saying that funding for FEMA was diverted to international efforts or border issues. They're saying it was used to help immigrants. And there's no doubt about that because FEMA acknowledged it. So they start off with a lie. So a straw man is you take somebody else's argument and you create a fake version of that argument so that you can knock it down, hence a straw man. But it's a fake version of your opponent's argument. It's not the actual argument. This is what so-called fact checkers do all the time. Nobody lies more than fact checkers lie. They create a fake claim that they then rebut, and they then rebut it with a fake argument. So FEMA has designated part of their disaster funds over here. So all the funds that they diverted to immigrants didn't come from the disaster funds because they diverted it before it ever got there in the first place. Ha ha! See, we proved your fact check. These people are such a joke and an embarrassment, and they don't even realize it. They don't even realize that everybody knows they're lying. That the only people who believe them are their own audience, their own crowd, their own liberal media constituency. Nobody else does. And so it's just nonsense. You can go to FEMA's own site, and FEMA identifies that they're helping refugees. They're funding all these people that the Biden administration has brought in, Haitians, Cubans, asylum seekers, refugee seekers, etc. That all that relocation that happened in places like Springfield, Ohio, is being funded by the Biden administration through congressionally authorized resources to FEMA. And FEMA's not supposed to be in the immigrant resettlement business. But the Biden administration chose to, and that's where all the money went.
What's amazing thing is they make up the lie, they fact check the lie, and then in separate articles from propaganda media, they have to acknowledge the lie. Mayorkas warns of low funds for hurricane relief after FEMA spends $690 million on migrant crisis. And their liar of an answer is going to be, well, we didn't spend that $700 million from the disaster relief fund. We spent that from the aggregate budget. So therefore, when we say we didn't take it from this pot, we took it from this pot, but now we don't have any money left for you guys. So it wasn't a lie. It wasn't diverted to international border, whatever the hell they call it.
Yale University was doing this when I was there, about that they claim they were not diverting money meant for financial aid to special pet projects that the donors had not authorized. And what they were doing is they would raise money on the phone and elsewhere saying, hey, we really need help for financial aid. Can you send money in? And if the person's check didn't say exclusive to the financial aid fund, they took it and funded the other projects. And they said, well, we didn't take anything from the financial aid fund. I mean, it would be called embezzlement if you did it anywhere else. That's what they've done. They've embezzled funds meant by Congress to be available for disasters and gave it to people who are not even American. And Harris announced during the middle of all this that she was going to send a bunch of money, over $100 million, to the country of Lebanon, while the Biden administration and the Harris administration are still not helping out there in North Carolina with this disaster.
VP, the people of Lebanon, can you imagine she tweeted this out yesterday? The people of Lebanon are facing an increasingly dire humanitarian situation. I am concerned about the security and well-being of civilians suffering in Lebanon and will continue working to help meet the needs of the civilians there. To that end, the United States will provide nearly $157 million in additional assistance to the people of Lebanon for essential needs such as food, shelter. It can't be an accident that she does this while people are literally dying in North Carolina. This additional support brings the total of assistance to 300 over the last year to 385 million to support them from the consequences of the $8 billion in foreign aid to Israel, plus the $4 billion or whatever goes to the Palestinian side. I swore last night. I said, "Fuck you, North Carolina." Kamala Harris. Fact check. She didn't actually say that. It cannot be an accident that she would do that at that time with that wording. They're struggling for shelter, food, etc. And here's 150 million, but $750 and you'll get more of it later.
Well, you have David Axelrod admitting that from a Democratic perspective, the people that are impacted by this, that are democratically aligned voters around Asheville, they have confidence will find a way to vote, while they believe the very Republican-leaning rural voters won't. So, I mean, it's not just diversion of American money to foreign sources and to immigrants. It's politically motivated disaster response. And if this was Trump, it'd be news 24/7 on every major news broadcast station. Instead, they're trying to suppress all existence of it and barely discuss it. Contrast the media's coverage of Katrina with the coverage of this hurricane. It's incredible. It's just like the Maui coverage that disappeared once Democrats did such a shoddy job of responding to it.
It was celebrity fundraisers. They had marathons going, marathon events where, was it Kanye or was it?
Yeah, it was Kanye.
It was
Bush
Kanye
doesn't care about white people.
Black people. Black people. Right?
Black people. I mean, yeah.
And who's the actor? Austin Powers. Mike Myers.
Michael Myers was next to him when Kanye went off.
But check this out. I'm going back to the NBC article, or is that NBC or CBS? It's NBC. The agency has spent $690.9 million this year to, quote, enable non-federal entities to offset allowable costs incurred for services associated with non-citizen migrant arrivals in their communities, end quote. According to FEMA's fiscal 2024 awards. Texas governor slammed. They tell you it's not happening, but it didn't come out of the disaster relief fund. It just came out of the aggregate budget.
Yeah, they tell these things that are just classic lies. That they're in the name of fact checking, they're the biggest liars on the planet. And again, when they've been sued, courts have acknowledged this by saying they're not actually stating facts or checking facts. That's why they've been immune from suit, because they said nobody reasonable would interpret these people as actually engaged in what they say they're engaged in.
I remember we covered that lawsuit at the time. Here, I'll bring one up here. Viva, $750 from FEMA versus 99 American airliners gave $25,000 pre-settlement to help the bereaved families and survivors of 1420. IRS said it was not tax-free. I was not politically conscious back in the day. The ice melted won't make the sea levels rise because the ice is lighter than water. True, but then there's enough portion of the ice that's outside of the water that might cause it. When an ice cube melts in water, the level goes down, not up. That I remember from science, unless I'm mistaken. What else? I mean, what else about FEMA so that we can fully?
Well, just anybody out there that FEMA has no legal authority to tell you can't try to help the people of North Carolina. So don't let any false statements or claims that are coming out concerning that deter you from helping out in North Carolina. Elon Musk is directly assisting in North Carolina. Dr. Phil is directly assisting in North Carolina. Range and Eastern Tennessee, up in the Appalachian part. It didn't hit much in Chattanooga, my hometown. That's in the southeast corner. It was much more in the mountains, up in the northeastern, the Smoky Mountains. I mean, the irony of all this, not far away from there, is the original foundation of FEMA. It's the Blue Ridge Mountains where they had that, I think, Mount Weather or whatever it was called, which was the original Dr. Strangelove bunker. So if anybody should have been prepared to handle that region, it should have been FEMA. But it's because they're not there because they've been converted into an immigration assistance agency.
A disaster of the government's making that they're now tending to with taxpayer dollars. And by the way, it's gone up to over 74,781. Let's just refresh one more time. 74,781. I gave everybody the link there. And I was assured by Jacob Wells the money's going to be divvied up among charities that are on the ground, and it's going to go directly to the people in need and not be seized by or diverted by FEMA EL. Let me see here. A couple of quick ones. We got Congress had hearings on alien spaceships moving at impossible speeds. Weather machines don't surprise me. Check out Project HARP in Alaska. No question about that. And I'll read this one from our locals community because it's one that a lot of people routinely ask me. And Robert, we consistently answer it. No violence. But without resorting to violence and intimidation, what's the best method for an average citizen, read, non-lawyer, non-politician, do to influence appellate courts and SCOTUS to overturn and correct ridiculous jury verdicts, etc.? The Trump hush money case, nonsensical civil awards, Alex Jones, and cruel, unprecedented criminal sentences, Tina Peters. We're going to get to that in a few seconds. Do we segue into that right now, the Tina Peters, before we head over to Rumble and vivabarneslaw.locals.com exclusively?
Sure.
I was watching the judge sentence Tina Peters. I didn't watch the oral arguments back and forth. Tina, I believe, was representing herself in presenting the arguments, asking for not clemency, but probation. I started listening to the judge render his judgment as he was sentencing. And I swear to you, I thought it was a scene out of a movie. I thought it was, I didn't know who was talking because it was so insanely preposterous what I was listening to. And the video was like a cheap, speaking of butt cheek potatoes, it was like a cheap potato camera. You couldn't really see the judge's mouth moving. And I was convinced I was listening to the prosecutor plead. It was so wildly hyperbolic, wildly unprofessional. This judge getting out there and saying that Tina Peters, who was accused of unlawfully influencing public servants because she was trying to get access to the server so that she, through her FBI informant, dude, could mirror Dominion's server and data information, that she was accused of unlawful impersonation, conspiracy to commit unlawful impersonation, influence of a public servant, unlawful influence. Listening to this judge berate her, tell her that she was in this only for herself. He called her a charlatan, and I had to Google what a charlatan meant. And then he goes on to issue his sentencing, which was, there were 8 convictions, 3 for unlawful influence of a public servant. Then there was the conspiracy to commit identity theft, I believe, where she was found guilty, but not actual impersonation, criminal impersonation. And he's rendering these orders and these sentences, 3.5 years, 3.5 years, to be run consecutively, not concurrently. Then throws on a 15 months for the conspiracy to commit identity theft, I think, concurrently. So that's 3.5 concurrent, another 3.5, sorry, consecutive. Then another 15 months consecutive. And it's the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. I presume, based on the way the video went viral on Twitter and elsewhere, and the way that judge, I suspect now, is on a blast that he never thought he would be on or wanted to be on. It's like, I don't think he thought through the consequences of what he was doing as he was doing it, but it's the most insane sentencing I've ever heard for a nonviolent crime. He said to Tina Peters that what she did was worse than the violence that his court sees in Ohio. Not in Ohio, in Colorado, sorry. Robert, can you explain the discretion that judges have to issue sentences concurrently versus consecutively? And I know what you think of this, and so does our locals community, but tell the world what you think of what this judge did to Tina Peters, regardless of what you think about what Tina Peters did herself.
Well, historically, the right to sentence defendants in a criminal case was to be determined by a jury. In my view, that's what the Constitution intended. People remember the famous "Give me liberty or give me death." Patrick Henry led to the acquittals of a tobacco farmer who wasn't paying the tobacco tax. What they don't know is it wasn't for an acquittal. It was for the jury to issue the lowest possible sentence because the jury controlled sentencing. Judges don't want anybody to know this, that they have hijacked and usurped to themselves and stolen power that belonged to juries, not to them. And that's the core of the problem. Judges should have no such power over sentencing. All sentencing should be determined, like the guilt of the crime, like the law itself, by juries. Judges took 2 things away from juries. First, they took away sentencing power. Second, they took away any question that they called a legal question. If it was a legal question, magically jurors just couldn't have that power. Now, you won't find any constitutional originalism to justify this, but many of the judges on the right love usurping power for themselves too. And consequently, they have been intellectually dishonest about conceding this fact. And people just take it for granted now in the legal profession that judges should control sentencing and judges should control legal questions when constitutionally they were never intended to have either authority. You won't. In fact, one of the big objections that led to the revolution, that led to the Bill of Rights, was these kind of colonial administrator type officials usurping decisions about guilt, usurping decisions about fines, usurping decisions about sentences. And so he's just another illustration, one more example why judges should never have this power. But because courts decide for themselves what power they have, isn't that always nice? There's nobody there to discipline. Like I have a case up in Seattle, Washington that I'll be making an appearance in, where it's the judges violating the defendant's rights on a regular basis. A guy who's in jail basically over a mask mandate, a COVID mask mandate, and they ignored his religious and medical objections to it. Still in jail, and they're rigging one trial after the next. And the lead people rigging the trials are the judges. Like one of the things they did was issue their own mask mandates and then wouldn't let him in if he didn't have a mask on, and then issued a criminal sanction saying he failed to appear when they were the ones who prohibited him from appearing in the first place. And then they conduct a trial that excludes him from defending himself in his own trial. And this is what, and especially liberal Democrats who are power mad. Remember, this is the same Colorado court system that initially, its Supreme Court wanted to remove Trump from the ballot on patently frivolous arguments. The only people that are interfering with civil rights, civil liberties, and election integrity in Colorado are the judges themselves, and they're the ones who belong in prison like this scumbag does. He should be impeached, then he should be indicted for civil rights violations, and then he should have his rear end put in prison for 9 years, because that's what a constitutionally honorable country was. This man is a disgrace to the bench, but he represents what liberal Democrats represent on the bench. And he represents the dangers of ever giving judges any power at all, because they will abuse it, because they always have. It's the only tradition with giving small elites any degree of power. They won't do it out of good conscience. They won't do it to protect the individual rights or liberties. They will misuse and abuse it as they have throughout our entire history. And this judge is just the latest example of that. His sentence is insane. And here's a judge who's going to let rapists walk, murderers walk, drug dealers walk, pedophiles walk, because he cries deeply for them. But someone who challenged the election integrity in Colorado, 9 years in state prison because he doesn't like her speech, as he was stupid enough to say from the bench.
Let me just illustrate that you're not being hyperbolic in what you're saying about letting the rapists out. He literally said in his sentencing diatribe that Tina had none of the other factors, basically mitigating factors. She wasn't a drug addict. She knew what she was doing, as if to say, like, the rapists don't know what they're doing, or the drug addicts, or the alcoholics, or the gang, the gang members. Well, they're a product of their environment. She doesn't have those defenses going for her. And FYI, people, out of Colorado, the average sentence for a convicted rapist is anywhere from 4 to 14 years. And it's typically lower. It was like 4 to 8 years. So Tina Peters, nonviolent, first-time
69-year-old woman.
69-year-old woman, Gold Star mom.
She was exposed. Whatever you think of her actions, believed she was blowing the whistle on corruption and fraud in the election of 2020, is going to serve twice as long as the average rapist in Colorado. And this judge is proud of that fact.
Explain that where people were picking up on that. And I can't say that I picked up on it the first time, where the judge said, specifically, like, while you were exercising, he said basically, it doesn't protect your words. I think that's almost verbatim what he said. She did, it does not protect her words that came out of her mouth.
I know. And I mean, it was just, this is why we took the Owen Schroyer case, the 1776 Law Center, on behalf of Owen Schroyer to the Supreme Court, try to get the Supreme Court to take it, because judges were starting to sentence people based on their political beliefs, based on their political speech. That's not supposed to happen. That First Amendment prohibits it. But once the Supreme Court sat on its lazy rear end like it usually does and didn't take the case, judges like this feel empowered. Judges like this are like, all right, now we can get going. The people interfering in the election are judges. the people trying to contaminate our election are judges more than anyone else. It was the judges who failed to discharge their duties to hold meaningful election contests in Georgia. It was the judges of the Supreme Court of the United States that failed to take the original action that was joined by a near majority of states and a near majority of members of the House of Representatives and a bunch of senators and leading legal scholars, and they were too scared to take the case. And the only Alito and Thomas dissented from the failure to take the case. So I mean, all the rest were wusses. They're like, we don't want to get involved. And what all that has done is allowed these liberal authoritarians that will feel all sympathy in the world for the sickest psychos on the planet, because they're part of the dependent constituencies and classes that they get to control and govern, and are enraged by the independent people who expose the corruption and fraud of the system. And that's why these judges that are supposedly liberal judges are some of the nastiest, most vicious, most vile, fascistic authoritarians you'll find on the planet. The gap between a fascist and a communist is a very thin line. And what you're seeing is who and how these judges act. They're going to weaponize their power, their control, to imprison their political dissidents and political critics, and be proud of it and want to brag about it to the world and expect that they will be cheered and declared heroes and be given special foundation scholarships and grants and all the rest for being these great noble jurists who stood up against the election whistleblowers, which is what she was and who she is. But by the terms of the sentencing itself and the law of Colorado, he radically deviated from it. He radically deviated so badly, and he was so explicit in his political prejudice and so explicit in wanting someone punished for their speech and as a message to deter other people's speech, that even the commie courts of Colorado are probably going to have to overturn this verdict and overturn this sentence, because he also rigged the entire trial so she couldn't present a defense.
I also want to highlight, because the retort or the steel man is, "Oh, Viva, she got rightfully convicted by a jury of her peers." To which I want to say, like, convicted by the jury versus sentenced by the politically motivated judge are two very different things.
Well, not only that, it confuses power with principle. Never confuse the two. I'm a big champion of the right of a jury trial and of the jury having more power than judges. That does not mean every jury decision is correct. If you defer your judgment about the law or justice, this is what we discussed about the Rekieta case. If you defer to what a judge says it is or what a jury says it is, then you have a completely subjectivist interpretation. And by that definition, the law has no objective meaning, and truth has no objective meaning, and justice has no objective meaning. You're a relativist at heart. And so unless that's what you truly philosophically embrace, then it's not a position that's consistent with any belief in that there's objective truth, that there's objective justice, that there's objective law that can be objectively discernible. And so the fact she was convicted tells me nothing. The only thing that the whole case tells me is it was a rigged trial in front of a biased jury pool by a judge who was preordained to rig the sentencing in ways that contravene the principles of law governing all three.
I'll only add my 2 cents to that. Is people say she was or she was convicted by a jury, so you got nothing to complain about. And I'm like, first of all, sentenced by the judge is different. But then the other question is, if a jury knew that they were going to be responsible for having a woman sentenced to basically life in prison, given her age, if she serves this entire bullshit sentence, would they have found her guilty in the first place? So when they want to find someone guilty, if they handle the sentencing, it's a lot easier to control by way of an outcome, as opposed to under these circumstances, they say guilty. I mean, well, I want to bring up Jenna Griswold.
I mean, even that liberal jury would have gone with a very low sentence.
Absolutely.
And that's why the judge doesn't want, that's why the judges took away the jury's power to sentence. They want to control that extraordinary power. They don't want ordinary people to have it.
And I would have said the jury might have still convicted her because this is Jenna Griswold's Colorado, and we're dealing with like a jury pool that might be as biased as DC. But they would nobody in their right mind would have sentenced her to 9 years. I mean, nobody in their right mind. 6 months would have been excessive already. Robert, entertain me. I just want to play the first minute and 2 seconds, including the judge's dramatic pause. Listen to this I'll share the link with everybody. I mean, it's gone around, but as much awareness that can be raised for Tina Peters right now, you can think she's guilty all you want. People are saying she didn't really expose egregious election fraud because nobody really looked into it. But she's clearly being punished for what she attempted to do. Listen to 1 minute and 2 seconds of this. Dramatic pause.
You have no qualms with violating the court's orders because you're innocent, because you didn't do anything wrong. You were just doing your job. You have no problem trying to kick an officer. Your explanation about what happened is preposterous. It's on video. You have no problem lying to officers. It's happened multiple times. They're recorded conversations. It's just more lies. No objective person believes them. No, at the end of the day, you cared about the jets, the podcasts, and the people fawning over you. You abdicated your position as a servant to the Constitution, and you chose you over all else. Yes, you are a charlatan, and you cannot help but lie as easy it is for you to breathe. You betrayed your oath for no one other than you.
It's a whole hell of a lot of confession through projection, Robert.
That's exactly what it is. And anytime people think that the outcome justifies what took place, that means you support the ending the verdict in To Kill a Mockingbird. And you're basically a moral reprobate at that point. Anybody who celebrates a jury verdict merely because it's a jury verdict, or celebrates a sentence merely because it was someone in power issued it, is a kind of a disgusting human being, really.
Let me read a few of the super chats. Everyone, come on over to vivabarneslaw.locals.com or Rumble. We got Eclectic Deb over on YouTube. It says, in fact, in that fact check on the hurricane, if it's true then climate change is BS, right? Yeah, I guess we can't affect the environment. Benny D says they were dropping dry ice salt into hurricane tornadoes to see what effect changing the humidity temperature would have, increasing, decreasing, how bad it was. The research was started decades ago. Absolutely. I had a court commissioner in the Seattle area tell me, quote, I don't care what the Supreme Court says. We saw that out of Dexter Taylor's case, and then throw me in jail on contempt when I pointed out his ruling was illegal. And then we got Keith Noah says, can FEMA be sued for predatory lending to disadvantaged people? Apparently it says the grants don't have to be paid back. So, and then we got B Torn says, some don't know Asheville region was already flooded by 2 days of rain. A day later, monsoon rains came, washed out the soil. Yes, it's catastrophic. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to end on CommieTube, and it's going to take it out on Twitter as well. Robert, what do you have this week? I mean, we'll go over it at the end there, but for anybody who's not coming over from CommieTube, come on over from CommieTube, people. But what do you have this week?
Oh, we got the big Amos Miller argument. He's the Amish farmer the state of Pennsylvania is trying to shut down. His case will be heard in the morning in the Commonwealth Court, but they're locating their hearings in the Allegheny County Courthouse. They issued a detailed order about, reminding people they cannot rebroadcast. There will be a YouTube channel where you can listen in, but that will be the only place. There's no rebroadcasting allowed of any kind. That probably raises its own constitutional issues, but that will be another issue for another day. Made clear nobody can bring phones in, nobody can bring have any shirts that say anything on them. They seem to be obsessed with that, to be honest with you. It was a bit of a peculiar order, but this is the same Commonwealth Court that just tried to change the election rules to favor Democrats in Pennsylvania. So am I confident that we'll get a fair, impartial hearing from unprejudiced judges? No, I'm not. We'll see what happens. But you can support Amos Miller's got a pumpkin pie fundraiser to help support all the different legal costs that he has had to incur in these years of harassment by the state of Pennsylvania and the Biden administration. And maybe the election will resolve some things down the road. But in the interim, they're trying to shut him down. So you can go out to AmosMillerOrganicFarm.com and get what you want today, because who knows whether it's available in a week, depending on what the Commonwealth Court decides to do. The law is quite crystal clear. The ruling of a prior Commonwealth Court judge, the ruling of the trial court judge, is the state does not have the legal authority or the constitutional power to shut down and prohibit a farmer from making his food accessible to willing, informed customers outside the state of Pennsylvania. But, this is a Commonwealth court that twice had to be overturned by a Democratic Supreme Court in Pennsylvania because they tried to change the rules to help Democrats in the election. This is a Commonwealth court that has illegally imprisoned farm workers on Amish farms. So we'll see what happens. I get 7.5 minutes to make arguments. So we'll see how that goes on Tuesday.
Unbelievable. All right. I'll be listening, Robert, for sure. Ending on CommieTube and ending on Twitter as well, just because that's how Studio's designed. Come on over to Rumble. Bam.